Ali. So I'll try to be very quick, but I first want to say that some of the things that you've testified today, particularly, the specter that we will have a generation that will lose their language and culture if we don't take action now, and also the idea that children can't speak to their own grandparents, I think for every one of us here is absolutely both heartbreaking, but also inspires anger and action. So thank you very much for testifying. And I just have a quick question then for Mr. Cherkin. You mentioned a couple of things. First of all, you mentioned human rights defenders and the need for Canada to do more to help the human rights defenders that need to come here. We have, through this committee, created and first proposed, and now the government has created 250 spots for human rights defenders annually to be able to come to Canada. Do you think that this is something that we should expand and increase and allow globally, but also for Tibetans, more human rights defenders as a unique stream of immigration, not as refugees or as immigrants, but specifically so they can come, and then if they need to return or stay here, it would be flexible?
Thank you for the question. Certainly, and I would say that the invitation, if there's a scope for expansion of the committee, invitation should be sent to Tibetan human rights defenders from inside Tibet. And I think many committee members would know the story of Tibetan language advocate Tashi Wangchuk, who was sentenced to 5 years in prisons just for advocating, just for speaking about the preservation and promotion of Tibetan language to New York Times reporter. And Canadian government has issued statement for the immediate and unconditional release of Tashi Wangchuk in past. We have communicated with Canadian officials in embassy in Beijing, and we're thankful that the embassy sent its official to try to get inside the court when there was sentencing. The hearing about his sentencing was about to happen. But unfortunately, and not surprisingly, Canadian officials as well as officials from other countries were not allowed to get inside the court to hear about the details. And this is usually quite common to many Tibetans, which is something that I've spoken in my previous testimony at the Foreign Affairs Committee, where many Tibetan who are prisoner of political conscience do not have the rights to access to lawyers, do not have the rights to access to their families when they are detained. Thank you.
I think those are very important recommendations. Just a flip side about the human rights defenders that are still in Tibet is those that are here. Those of you who are here today, Mr. Chechen, you said something about that there's been a change in the last couple of years. And I wonder if there would be a need, if you think there would be a need for the federal government, maybe within the RCMP, to create some kind of a protective service, maybe a public person's protective service for people who are targeted specifically because of their activism. Is that something that you would, and I'll ask for a very quick answer so I have some time for Mr. Asasi to ask.
Thank you for this very important question. I think the best person to really answer this question would be my colleague who's actually sitting here today, because Chimi Lhamo has actually been the victim of, yes, please, Chimi.
Yes, to keep it short, but there's also a report by Amnesty International that has been presented multiple times. I've personally testified here more than twice with the recommendations. And the first recommendation, that's the low-hanging fruit, is a point person to be able to direct resources or connect us to individuals that could support us, because we've always gone round and round and round and never really had the support. And my case was presented in 2019.
Mm-hmm.